How you doing, everybody? Randy Richard in the shop, and today the video is going to be about the table saw, putting on together the fence, refurbishing the fence, all that, the tubes on here, and how I fix those all up. I got the tubes from Gary Brown over at Old Iron Machine Works. So mine were bent and in worse shape than these. So these ones are at least straight. They were rusted, but I cleaned them up, and they came out super nice, super nice. Really happy with that. We'll get the fence put on, and this nice board here on the side, the extension board, in this video. I'm working on the miter gauge right now. That's in tough shape, so that's taking me a little bit. And a motor. We'll talk about the motor real quick. I just assembled the motor and checked it out, and it doesn't make out really very well. Two of the poles are pretty bad shape. So I am contemplating rewinding, but it's going to cost me upwards of around $1,500 probably to have it rewound. So that probably is not going to happen. So I'm going to look into installing two new motors on it. One for the joiner and one for the table saw. I think that's going to be my best option. Also, I have knockers available. If you're interested in a knocker, please contact me. This is how I support my channel. I make tools to sell, something of unique value. I do kind of mass production, but I make them all here. I make everything here. I use a turret lathe. I use all manual machines to make all the tools, dovetail cutters and scribes and the knockers. You know, if you want a handmade tool, you know, made by me, there's nobody here helping me really, so it's kind of a one-man show. Support the channel. Buy a knocker. This is what I have in stock. I have a few dovetail cutters in stock though. Not a lot, but a few. But I have several of these still in stock, and I like to sell them. And please contact me by email. That's the only way I do this. You can DM me on Instagram, but we're going to end up on email. I do everything by email. That way I have a record and I can track everything. It's just a lot easier for me. So email me. It's rrrintheshop@gmail.com, and it's link in the email's in the description, and I'll try to put them on the screen here in front. So if you're interested, it has a brass end, 1 inch in diameter, has a UHMW end, alloy steel body to it, and it's filled with lead shot. So please pick up one and support my channel. This is how I can do projects like this. This restoration is, I have no idea how many hours, several hundred hours already into this project, and I still have a lot to go. But this is how I can support doing projects like this, and making maybe some old equipment nice, fixing new equipment, and all the other miscellaneous things I do in the shop. I just do a lot of different things and make a lot of stuff, but I do like restoring stuff, and this is going to come out really nice for the saw. Thank you guys, and let's get this thing fixed up. So the fence consists of a lot of parts actually for a fence. This is the near end to the operator, which has a clamping mechanism. This slides on the rails. You might call it a carriage, like on a lathe. And then the arm, of course, comes out. But on the far end of the arm, down here, there is also another clamp, which clamps on the opposite side. And that has this rod that pulls a little lever and all that. It's like I said, it's kind of a little bit complicated. So we'll get it all together here. Now, if you watch when I took this apart, there were a couple pins, and these are blind pins. They didn't fit, super tight or anything, but they were very difficult. They were kind of a pain to get out. Once there's dirt and maybe a little rust on them, they're really hard to get out. So what I did is I drilled the ends up here. I drilled the ends, the exposed end of the pins, 1/4 20, and put a set screw in there so the hole is plugged.
but that way you could put a screw or something in there and pull the pin out later on. So I modified those. Then on the far end, the mechanism that how this operates was inferior, to say the least. The one that was in here was broken, and so I made a special nut, and this is the carrier for the rod end, and I made it out of stainless, so it's pretty nice, this acorn nut. If you were watching on Instagram, I showed pictures when I made that acorn nut. It's the first acorn nut I've ever made. So that came out really pretty awesome. And that will go in through here, actually, like that. So we'll put that together. So that was a little upgrade, something that won't break, because the other one was this aluminum casting piece, and thin, and then the upgrade to the pins. Other than that, it's all clean, all ready to go. And this is the far end. I'm going to put that together first, and I'm going to show you how this works. I try to before we put it in, because once it's inside you can't see anything. So this rod goes down the center, or down the top part of the rail, and engages this lever arm. This clamp arm, which the tube will sit right here, you know, the tube is right here, that clamps on, and a pin hole right there, so it can lever, and when you tighten this, it pulls on, let's see here, so when you pull on this rod, it pulls this clamp arm up tight. It's a simple mechanism, but it's a little bit of a pain to put together. That out, drop this out, do this backwards here. So that goes in. Acorn nut is on the outside. There. We'll put back together. Okay, and this goes in, and that has to slip into the, without the pin falling out. There. And the pin promptly falls out. Like I said, the pin fits very freely in there. So now that then slips in here. Now they've left these holes pretty big on the top for movement, I guess, so you can adjust things. But these are originals. All I did was kind of buff these out, and I don't know if they almost look like they're nickel plated. I just cleaned them up and buffed them out. Now I'm not going to make these super tight, so we can adjust things at a later date here. When we get the saw up and running, we'll go through a fine tuning of all the pieces. So that's that end together. Now, so I moved it and I lost the rod, of course, from it. Of course I did. Yeah, there's definite downfalls of this design. All right, that's together, and now for this piece here, the I guess carriage part. Now these parts are all internal, and it's kind of going to be a pain to see, to show you exactly, but so we got the bolts, of course, on top that will hold it to the rail. This is the knob that goes in and it slides in and out so you can engage it into the gear on the rail for fine adjustments. And this is a little spring wire pin that slips up through the bottom and engages that holds that in. Comes up to the bottom and holds that in. This is the lock handle that goes up and down. Now, the original one was bent. It would work, but I took the one off of the fence I got from Gary. I got Gary Brown over at Old Iron Machine Works, and he donated a lot of parts to the saw for me so I could pick and choose. And so this one was nice and straight, cleaned it up, buffed up the handle, and for that painted it. This is the locking cam piece inside. Now this has a spring on the pin that helps spring it back, and the one in the original fence was broken on the end, so I scavenged the spring for it. And then, like I said, I drilled the ends of these two pins, which are blind pins, to help. So I drilled and tapped a 1/4 put a set screw in to keep the hole clean. So if you ever have to remove them, it makes it a little easier to screw something in and be able to pull them out. And then this is the knob that goes on the end of the fence. The tensioning rod, adjustment tensioning for the far end. All right, putting this together is a little bit tricky. So the handle goes in so. This pin with the hole in it, which has to have that spring engaged, goes in first. And then the pin is, the hole is on the side of this here, the boss for this. Now this is offset hole. This is actually a cam. And I probably shouldn't have painted this. It's going to rub, but it will rub it off where it needs to. Then this here goes in here, the clamping part, with the spring pin on it. With this, it has to be the spring on the side, which engages in this hole here. And then I got to get that hole, this into the hole of the other pin. So it's a little bit of a trick to do. I did practice this once, so we'll see how it all goes. So we're going to slip that in, and I forgot to scrape the paint on this hole. I put a little grease in the cam here. I'm going to take this pin and slip it in. Now I'm going to also put about grease down in the hole inside. Yeah, so that goes in nice and easy now. Now we'll do the same with this one. These pins don't have any retainers or anything like that. They just slip in, you know. There's a little air in there right now, so that they're pushing that piston out. So now I've got to get that pin, that spring in there, and I'm probably going to end up having to do this off camera because it's going to take me a minute to do. And there's going to be probably 4-letter words involved, and we don't want to have that on film, even though I don't usually, it's a very rare occasion I use a 4-letter word, but I'll think of a 5 or 6-letter word and we'll use that instead. Yeah, anyway, we'll need to get that down in there and on that pin. Okay, there was no swerving involved actually. So I pulled the pin out of the cam part, or the locking part. I took the spring off and I put it into the other pin first. Then, with it loose and only in the one pin, it is maneuverable. Then I put this other pin in, put this back in. And then I'm going to flip it over here and get it in the hole. Got it in there, and then that will, when we have this adjusted here, that will adjust to how much pressure you have on it. Just a little spring to keep this all mechanism tight, that's all. Doesn't move very much. And it slips in here. Double hole set up. And they allowed a hole here to be able to knock it out at least. Used for the knocker. So the red rod goes through the passageway underneath here, and this all slips right on here, like so. This and it goes on there, and it came out of the thing down at the other end. That's the downfall of this thing is how this works is just kind of lousy. Okay, this is all complete together just about. You have to be careful about that coming out of down there because there's no tube down in this far end to keep it kind of at its limits. They could be a better design, that's for sure. So once that's on the saw, you'll be okay. Well, one thing also I did is I built scales for the sides. Since this is steel and I could have cleaned it up maybe good enough and blued it in kind of tough shape. So I figured painting it might be better, but you don't want to have wood rubbing against the paint. So I made some, this is birch plywood, a 1/4 inch. It's actually MDF with veneer, birch veneer. And I made some scales for it. So I'm going to put scales on the sides for your wood to rub against. And I just did an oil finish on these, Danish oil, to make it nice, a slippery one on each side. And it should not throw it off too much. It's only 1/4 inch and still should have enough adjustment in the little pointer right here. So I just drilled and tapped this 8 screw hole pattern so it wouldn't interfere with anything inside. And 832, and we just got, I made up got to cut some stainless screws off. So these all go on nice. There we go. The finished fence. I think it looks pretty spiffy myself. Whoa, I guess that's still not attached. Yeah, because no rod in there. That's the deal there. So we'll get that hook back on. And handle works nice and smooth, just beautiful. And I think it looks fantastic. Just fantastic. So we'll get the bars on the saw and we can set this on there. Here I put the tubes in the lathe. You know, they're long and I just barely hold on to them in the chuck, so I have most of it exposed. And I'm using a power file to sand this down. I mean, I started with like 60 grit. And I work it on down to about 120 with the power file. There's a lot of rust, and there's some pitting in some areas there where it's a little bit deeper, so I hit those a little bit more. Then I hand sand it down to 320. Then I touched it, just real quick, a little buff out with Scotch-Brite, and then back with some more 320. Came out awesome. Some isopropyl alcohol. Wipe it down really good. And then I'm going to use Brownell's Oxbow Blue. And I'm just using one of these micro fleece towels. This thing, for big projects, this works really well. And you can get a really nice even covering of the bluing. Now you want to blue the whole thing, and then I'm going to card it off with some fine steel wool, just very lightly card it off, and then I'm going to reapply the bluing just as before, wiping it down. This will darken it, and if there's any blotchiness, it might, you can get it to even out. But these came out really well. Now I'm going to use Bow Shield T9. It's a protective lubricant. It will soak into the bluing and help keep it from rusting or anything like that. Now, if you scratch this, you can get some rust, but if you keep it protected, it will stay this way. All right, now I'm going to use a lacquer stick white to fill in the measurement markings on the one tube. You let it dry and then gently rub it off, basically. The fleece stuff works pretty good. You have to try different materials sometimes. They came out just absolutely awesome, I think. Probably far better than they ever were. And then on the, let's see here, on the numbers, get it close enough. The numbers, they were engraved deep enough, and I filled them with white lacquer stick. And they came out pretty darn good. I had to clean every single little line out with a dental pick. Took me a little bit, but for the most part, it came out pretty good. It's way better than it probably ever was, but you'll be able to read them. So let's get these attached. These are a pain, just so you know. Now this one also has the gear on the bottom for the fence. We got these little funky bolts. I got this weird wavy kind of head on them. It goes on the inside of the tube, and then there's this spacer piece, and then there'll be a nut and a washer in the table. And I cleaned these up and painted them. There's these big holes, and I got to get the bolt clear down there and to pop out. And then this goes over that and sits on there like that. Okay, that really wasn't too bad. I slid the bolt down the hole. I got it upside down, and this here pick, and I was able to, upside down, reach up over and flip that in. Just the hole's pretty big, so if I will flip it, and out it came. Now these bolts also have serrations on them that hold these on tight. So when you put that on, and when I pull it up tight, it will squeeze onto those serrations. I took a piece of 5/8 square bar I had, put it down the tube to back up those bolts, and it was just enough to get the nuts on. So it's loose still, but the nuts are on there. Okay. Square bar worked. Slipped right on. gauge the gear mechanism. Look at that. Ooh, smooth. That's what we call smooth. Going to pull that up. The numbers look fantastic. And once we have our blade, we'll calibrate our pointer and get that all set up real nice. Well, on the end of the tubes for the fence, I had only one of the original caps right here. These are cast aluminum, and they kind of fit in there, kind of snug, but you know they're aluminum, so they don't hold a lot of tension. And but they have these slots in them, but I saw no evidence of a pin or anything to lock them into, but I don't know why. But that's what I assumed. They slipped onto something and then locked. So I decided just to make some. And this is what I came up with. These are just aluminum. Relief in the back. 832 socket head cap screw. And then I 3D printed. I put a nut in it. Hex recess. Put the nut in. And then this will screw on here, and as you tighten it up, concave surface on the inside of it there, and as you tighten this up, this collapses, it squishes out and forms a nice tension and holds the cap in really nice. I just polished them, and we'll go over and we'll get those put in. Last finishing touches on the fence.
You guys for sticking around to the end here and checking out the saw. It's coming out I'm really just tickled pink how well it's coming out. It's coming out awesome, and putting the board on here really made it nice. I had a half a sheet of ply sitting around, real good stuff, good two-side cabinet grade stuff, birch plywood, and it's just made it really make a difference on the saw. So one quick note, I have the saw mounted on the wrong side of the stand. Something I overlooked when I got the saw back from my brother-in-law. This is the side of it, how it was mounted. And checking this out the other day, I go, this is on the wrong side because of where the holes are. This hole is for the table saw, because it only needs one hole. And this side has two, one for the belt and one for expelling the chips on the joiner. So I'm going to move this. It has all the holes are there. There's tons of holes in this thing. So I'm going to have to move the table saw, turn it around so it's on this other side. And good thing I noticed that before I do anything about motors, because I'm really tending toward the two motor thing. And I modeled up the stand and downloaded some models of motors so I can make sure I can get them on the base down there and arranged so we can have two motors. And then I got to come up with a different control setup so you can just flip between the two motors and use the same controller. So we'll figure that all out too. So thanks a lot for sticking around. Please check out the first two videos on, you know, taking the saw all apart and putting it, reassembling it. I didn't do much on the cleaning, they said, you know, and a little bit on the showing the paint, but that's not too complicated. But this, you know, doing all this stuff is a fun project. It's taken me a long time. Been working on it, I think, about a year now. So we'll get to the joiner here real soon. I'm working on the miter, and I'll work through the motor situation. And I have the joiner sitting right there on the table, ready to be taken apart. So we'll get going on that real soon. So be sure to check out knockers. Email me if you want a knocker. So thanks you guys, and thanks for watching, and thanks for sticking around. Thanks for supporting the channel. Please subscribe and click the notification bell. And we'll catch you in the next one.